Welcome to That'll Preach. Back after a long hiatus. A lot has been going on in life, but I'm here with Paul live. Paul, say hello to everybody.
How's it going, everyone?
So Paul came down all the way from
Colorado
to come back to the stomping grounds of Tallahassee so we can record some episodes live. Lots been going on in my life. Just welcomed our first child, a little baby boy. So that's why there haven't been a lot of episodes for all 6 of our fans to listen to. But
has parenting been a transformative experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, it has. It's sometimes it's hard to believe that I'm actually a dad.
Mm-hmm. That's hard for me to believe too.
I was thinking about this where a lot of times when you look at families, I go, that's a family, a mom, dad, their kids. You're always seeing families in third person. It's weird when it's first person. Because I'm like, when people see us, they see a family. And some people, when they've just met us with a kid, they think they've always known us as a family of 3 or something like that, which is a weird thing to think about.
Usually dads don't have time to reflect on the nature of their parenting in the first couple months.
She just,
You've got a great wife.
She raises him. And
that's right.
I just say
you provide the big
minutes.
Bucks.
Exactly.
Well,
that's why I'm here. I couldn't make a podcast, if I, had to raise a child. So what we want to talk about, a series we've been talking about for a little bit is a series on weird theology. Some of the interesting speculations and more than speculation, some of the interesting conclusions that some theologians of the past have come to regarding various different issues throughout church history. And we've kind of informally talked about a lot of these. And we've got some fun ones that we have planned. So it's going to be a series called Weird Theology. And the first one we're going to talk about is, will we recognize each other in eternity? And, it's one of those questions where
you just kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
Some people do.
We don't often think about it. And I think there's 2 parts to it. First, a lot of people, they think Christians, your eternal destiny is to be this disembodied soul. You're on a cloud with a harp and you're singing 10,000 Reasons by Chris Tomlin for 10,000 years.
That's a good one.
All that stuff. And if people are honest, you're kind of like, I don't know if that's like my idea of bliss and paradise. But the hope of the resurrection is, and N.T. Wright talks about this, it's about life after death. It's about your soul departs to be with the Lord, and then it comes back to be reunited with your body in a glorified, resurrected body like Christ. Christ didn't rise from the grave as a spirit, but as an embodied man, as a human being, but glorified. You can see that his body has properties that are different from ours. He seems to be going through walls. He's indestructible. And yet he's recognizable.
Sometimes. Although
right.
Some of the disciples fail to recognize him on the road.
But it is a resurrection. It is the resurrection of his life. He has come from death to life. It's not a recreation of him. And so there's this mystery there. But the point is that Jesus' resurrection is a foretaste of our resurrection. You see this in 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul talks about, a seed goes into the ground, it comes out in another form. There's a continuity. It's the same genetic material in both, but there's a difference in form. And so that's always been an interesting thing to think about. But the question of identity, I think, is rooted here. So I think it'd be a fun topic to talk about now with our friends Thomas Aquinas and maybe some Augustine. I don't know if he talked a little bit about this, but are we going to recognize each other? How do we even start to think about that,
I mean, I think there's 2 competing impulses here. There's the impulse that if you're the one who's being resurrected, then obviously the body that you have is going to be you. But then the competing impulse is, well, but how can a material body live forever? How can a material body phase through walls like Jesus did? How can a material body ascend into heaven? And so it seems like you said, there's some continuity and some discontinuity. And Aquinas, for example, says, there's identity. So the thing that goes in the ground, and this is Paul's argument in 1 Corinthians 15, the thing that goes in the ground is the same thing that comes back out. The seed that dies or is planted, the thing that blossoms is a continuity of identity. But there are also things that are different about it in terms of its, what Aquinas calls impassibility, subtlety, agility, and clarity. We can pick apart those categories, but basically, like, the thing that's raised to life again is not going to die again. It's going to be perfectly under the control of your reason or your spirit. So the sort of ways that we talk about our flesh now as being sort of battling our spirit, that's not going to be true. So while there is a lot of like identity that's connecting the two things, that the earthly body and the spiritual body, there's also going to be some pretty radical differences. And I think that it poses a legitimate challenge. Like, to what extent is it the same entity? If some of what the church fathers say is true about the new heavens, like we don't need to eat, we won't have sex, we're not even capable of sexual procreation, like maybe Jesus is saying in Matthew, I don't know if that's true or not, but what is, is that going to be the same body? I don't know.
This can sound like pure speculation. To some respect,
it is a little bit, yeah.
But it's like
we're drawing on these theological principles.
But why is it important to discuss this? I think part of understanding who you are today and understanding what it means to be a human being and what your destiny is understanding the end for which you were made. So what is the goal for you as a human being? And is for you to be incorruptible. Mm-hmm. Is for you to be no longer enslaved to sin. It is for your mind, body, and soul to be aligned in submission to God. And so you have to have a picture of where you're going. I mean, this is for anything. You have to have a vision of what you're trying to accomplish. You're trying to have a vision of the kind of person you want to be. We think about that in normal life. How much more in our spiritual life? Like, what are we actually trying to become? So this is really a question about human identity, the purpose of our humanity, the end of our humanity, what is pulling us forward, what we're aiming towards. And if Christianity is about redeeming our humanity and reconciling us to God and freeing us from sin, then Christianity at its core is about what it means to be redeemed as a human being. And so all these questions about the nature of the end actually start to highlight some interesting and important theological questions I think have a lot of moral value in our lives today. So maybe we start with...
well, let me just add one more thing. Yeah. And also, if heaven really is forever, that challenge that you were kind of hinting at the start, some conceptions of heaven sound really like let's be honest, like boring. And I think it's okay to recognize those. And if they are boring, then that tells us something about what it means to be human. If we're just sitting on clouds, strumming harps, singing Amazing Grace, like what's that line? And we've been singing for 10,000 years, like singing the same verse over and over and over. Like, that sounds miserable.
Yeah.
And if heaven's like that, then that's going to impact our evangelism. What are we evangelizing people to? What do we think is our eternal destiny? So getting our eternal destiny right helps us, one, see it for the thing that it is. If it really is a beautiful vision of being united with God, what does that look like? Why is it the thing that we're meant for? How does that shape how we live now? And if it's truly this amazing thing that Paul says, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, then it's something to genuinely look forward to and not something to dread. And I feel like sometimes the sort of like wooden, impoverished views of heaven that you get, where it's just you're sitting on a cloud, strumming, hymning, it sounds miserable. It doesn't sound like the sort of thing that you want to do forever. And that tells us something about our theology now, and maybe correcting that can help us actually enjoy humanness now, human life now, and look forward to eternity.
So what are the problems that Aquinas is setting out to solve? Because the thing he's trying to prove is that the body that comes out of the ground is you. Mm-hmm. It's not some other thing. So there's an identity between the body that goes into the ground and the body that comes out. The problem is, one, we're disembodied for some time before we gain a resurrected body. So how does our identity persist?
That is a very good question.
Like what, like your body, and especially if if your body disintegrates, and it gets eaten up by bacteria, where does it go? Does all that come back together?
Yeah.
Does God just make a new one?
Right.
What does that mean? So these are all questions about the plausibility of the resurrection and some of the philosophical, I guess, tensions there.
There's definitely some puzzles. I mean, just think about it even now. Your body's changing, your red blood cells are changing, your white blood cells are changing, your skin cells, all of that is new material. You don't begin, I guess your neurons maybe stay the same from when you're born, your egg cells, if you're a woman, those stay the same. But the actual atoms in your body are changing. They're not the same atoms that you had when you were younger. You're eating food, you're getting water, you're growing. And so imagine that you die, could God make a 10-year-old version of you and a 30-year-old version of you resurrect at the same time in the new creation? This is one of the weird puzzles. That something about that feels weird. So it can't just be
matter.
It can't just be matter. There has to be something that differentiates Brian from me, and that makes it not possible to have two Brians.
Right.
God can't just like make 10-year-old Brian and 30-year-old Brian, have them both exist at the same time.
What about time travel?
What about time travel?
Wouldn't there be two if you went back in time at yourself? You think time travel is impossible?
I do think it's impossible, but it's for these kinds of reasons. I think it's just weird that you exist in multiple places at the same time, quote unquote.
What about the multiverse? It's another episode.
Didn't we do one on this?
I don't think we did.
We did one on the problem of evil in the multiverse.
Did we?
Yeah, where we showed like if there's a branching multiverse, every single possible bad thing that could happen does in fact happen. So it
maybe we could do that. That'll be a future episode. Okay, so the problem is that you can't have two.
It's not just
of the same identity.
Right. So that's one reason I think that you're not just this set of atoms, because one, your atoms are constantly cycling through your body now. The thing that makes you is that you are the one that has the atoms. We call that thing a soul. We call it the thing that gives you your personal identity. Think about the cannibal case that you were kind of alluding to. If you're eaten by a cannibal, now your atoms are part of that guy's atoms. And let's say that guy then becomes converted. He's going to be in the new creation. God's going to resurrect him with some of Brian's atoms. But are Brian's atoms totally lost to this person's biochemistry now? These are like some of the perennial objections. And I think all these just show is that, look, when God resurrects a person, it's not just the matter that counts. There's more than just matter. That doesn't mean we've solved all the problems. Like you still have questions of how does a soul exist? How does like God pick it from the air? Can God put your soul in a different set of matter?
Yeah, can you put
like a woman's matter? Like can God design a human body and then put like I think this is part of the transgenderism stuff kind of has a latent dualism. We could do a whole episode on that. But so it's not just matter, it's not just soul. There's something really, really mysterious going on.
Right. And it does get to questions of humanness, because if you're just matter, that's a particular kind of worldview. There has to be an organizing principle that makes that matter that, in other words, the matter might be coming and going as atoms, decay and whatever the science is with that, right? Or what's the ship analogy? The
ship of Theseus?
Yeah. Briefly give that to us.
Imagine you were at sea and you were repairing your ship plank by plank. At some point, you'll have cycled through all the planks, replaced every single one of them. Is there like a cutoff point or a threshold where we'd say it's no longer the same ship? You get the same problem when you just have like a material human being. If it's just atoms, at some point you might just bite the bullet and say, no, it's not the same person when it's 10-year-old Brian versus 30-year-old Brian.
Right. But that doesn't strike us as making any sense. So there's some kind of, for the ship, there's some kind of blueprint that persists, even though what fills it in might change. Mm-hmm. And that blueprint is this soul, so to speak.
Yeah.
And it's also attached to that particularity, though. I mean, maybe that's the question. If you have this form that orders all that matter, is it attached to that specific matter? Is it going to be the same atoms that come back together to form you, or are those long gone and decayed? And
I think you have to say no. I don't think you need the exact same atoms. What you need is the same organizing principle. Call it the life, call it the blueprint, call it the soul. That is the thing that makes Brian Brian.
Right, but part of the organizing principle would be all the particularities of who you are, your gender, your ethnicity, your
that's right.
eye color. So
even
it couldn't
the
just
specific parents that you came from. Like God preserves that narratival component. Otherwise, it's not Brian saying.
Right.
Like Brian saying is the product of two people coming together at a certain time.
Right.
And without that, you're not actually Brian.
Yeah.
You're like a Brian duplicate.
Right.
So God has to preserve a narratival element. Like there has to be a history, a historical component that makes Brian Brian.
That's interesting when you think about if you cloned yourself.
Yeah, it wouldn't be you.
Partially because they don't have the genealogical. I mean, they might have the same genetics, but they don't have the same narrative.
That's right. Yeah. And they wouldn't have the same first person perspective. They wouldn't have like the same,
which is part of who you are,
consciousness. Yeah. They would even like take up different space. Like you'd be located here, they'd be there.
Right.
So all of those things would be different.
And so when we talk about the organizing principle, what is the blueprint for who you are? It includes your physical attributes, your physical features, and also the necessary elements of your history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that's why you can't just put a soul into the body of a cat.
That's right.
Or a different gender, because the gender is part of the organizing principle. It's part of the blueprint.
Yep.
Right. You couldn't just take a blueprint for, a mansion, and it would be weird if you tried to stuff it into if you made a trailer park out of it, or a trailer park home out of it, you'd be like, that's not the blueprint.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But you will at some point stop existing, and then you will resurrect. As in, like, your body will cease to exist at some point, and then God. Well,
doesn't cease to exist, isn't it? The atoms would still degrade. They don't go into non-existence.
That's true. But do you ever go out of existence when you die? Even if your soul exists and then God brings you back to life, like, what is it that God is bringing back to life? This is one of the puzzles. Like, we want to say that in the new creation, our bodies will be something like our bodies. And maybe this is to get to the recognition question. Hopefully we'll be able to recognize each other, because that's the way like friendships exist, relationships will be able to endure. But also there's going to be marked differences in the body that we have now. Like, our actual biochemistry will change. If it's true that we're not going to be corruptible, if what some of the church fathers say about not needing to eat is true, so we can eat for maybe delight, but we don't need to eat in the same way, because if death is not possible, then hunger is not possible, and so starvation is not possible. So you can't die.
You don't need to poop or pee either.
Yeah, you don't. This is the tradition's view that food might be something that we enjoy as a delight, and Jesus even talks about enjoying the new wine in the new heavens. So Baptists, take note. There will be wine in heaven.
But you won't get drunk.
You won't get drunk. That's true. So our biochemistry will change. Maybe
you would just feel joy from it and not the negative effects.
Either we will have the virtue of temperance perfectly, so we never overdrink. That's true for sure.
Okay.
But maybe also our biochemistry will change.
Okay, so let's talk about that. You mentioned that there are 4 elements that are going to change in the new creation.
Yeah, we can go through those real quick. Yeah. Aquinas says impassibility is the first one, meaning just like what Paul says, the body's going to be incorruptible. We'll never die. And actually never suffer, never pain, no tears. This is the Revelation passage.
Right.
I'll just go through them all, then we can pick one. Subtlety just means that the body is perfectly obedient to the will, to the soul. So right now,
subtlety. He
calls that subtlety. Okay. This is just the Latin.
Subtlety means, say that again?
That the will always is able to exert itself over the body. It doesn't have to fight.
Okay.
Right now, like, I have all of these desires that want to go in different directions. My will is not completely in control over my physical dimension, like the animal part of my body.
Right.
But he says in heaven, those two will be in perfect harmony.
Right.
He calls that subtlety. So the bringing of the appetites under the control of reason, he calls that subtlety. Second is agility, which is a weird one. The way he describes it is the glorified body will move effortlessly without the limitations of the physical world. So one easy way to read that is just like you won't have ailments and pains. And if you've got a broken leg or
the cool way to think of it is you teleport.
You teleport, yeah. I think he might actually think that we'll all be like Philip in the eunuch. Like we can just move, because it says in the story, he just like teleports. He's moves.
Talking about, he's objecting to people who are saying that everything's instantaneous. He goes, no, you still have to move through time in some way.
But it's going to be effortless.
But it's just, and really fast or something like that. We're just going to be like zooming around.
Warp speed.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think about this one. I think it's a strange.
You'd wonder though if after a while you would get used to that and that would just become normal speed. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. So then, if that's your baseline,
but why is that a perfection? Why is that a glory that you can move fast through time?
I think.
Well, maybe you're not impeded by, but it's being What?
I think also. So on some readings of Aquinas, like you're so united with God in the like beatific vision that your sense of self is almost like eradicated. That's one way to read Aquinas, where it's almost like you become so one with God that you don't feel anything anymore. And I don't know if that's what he has in mind here, or maybe it's just the body is kind of like the thing weighing you down. And so when you have perfect control, it's effortless to move.
Maybe that's what it is, right? Because your mind and will might want your body to do something, but because of corruption and decay and sickness and weakness and frailty, whatever, there's a lag. It can't do it to the extent that you want to.
Yeah.
So there's subtlety, which is the power of
the obedience of the body to the will.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then there is agility, which is not being impeded.
And effortless movement.
Right. Effortless. Okay. So what else do we have here?
Clarity, which he says is just the body radiating the glory of the soul.
Interesting.
And it's a kind of like the holiness that you have through Christ is physically manifested in your body so that it's something that's evident. So that's the part where people think, well, to what extent are we still recognizable? Because I'm looking at you now, you don't radiate the righteousness of Christ.
Well, right now, I mean.
But in the new creation, I don't know what that would look like. Maybe this is what happens to the glorified body of Christ. Because
I wake up radiating with glory.
Yeah, well, maybe.
So you're saying that's why people wonder whether we'll recognize each other, because we apparently are going to have this property where we glow or something.
Yeah, like glowing or actual neon radiation, yeah.
Huh. So it reminds me of in The Great Divorce, there's the one ghost with a lizard on his shoulder, keeps whispering at him, and he finally gets him destroyed by one of the angels. And it becomes a stallion, and Lewis talks about him as this creature of light and glory that's like spilling out of him.
Yeah.
And so he becomes this kind of fountain of light. And so why does Aquinas think that? Because of Jesus being in a glorious body, the transfiguration, I suppose.
Yeah, transfiguration. When Moses sees God, his face is so radiant that he has to get covered. Okay. And so all of these, like the closer you get to God, the actual physical light you manifest. So almost to the point that your face becomes, and I think there's something symbolic about this, that yourself, in a sense, you become less of who you are and more Christ. And maybe that image is the thing that we should like focus on. This is
basically what Till We Have Faces is about.
Yeah, that's right.
By C.S. Lewis.
That's right.
Huh.
So in beholding God, you actually become more like him and less like yourself.
Right, which is good.
Yeah. So you become more Christ-like.
Well, you are yourself, though.
As you are yourself,
as you were truly meant to be, which is reflect. Like, that's the interesting thing. You were meant to reflect God.
Yeah.
And in reflecting God, you actually
become more
who
human.
You are, and your individuality is perfected.
But also more divine.
Divinization. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Adopt into the divine family. Become God. Reunited with God.
Get your own planet. Have multiple wives. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a tension. I don't know exactly how to parse those two things together. But this is why people think, are we actually going to recognize each other? It's a live question.
I'm going to recognize you.
Maybe
we'll podcast in the new creation.
We'll actually enjoy all.
We're gonna have no content though. Everyone's gonna know everything. So,
well, that's an interesting.
Are we gonna know everything?
I don't think we'll be omniscient. Yeah. Why should we think that?
Right. Well, I don't think we can be, because that'd be a godlike.
Yeah, we'd have to know everything that God. We'd have to know God's mind perfectly, and we couldn't know that. We could know lots of things that God decides to disclose to us, but I think there will still be the pursuit of knowledge, because we're not perfect by nature. But I think more of our time will be spent enjoying knowledge.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference between, we won't have the vice of curiosity, which I think we spent an episode on before. We'll acquire knowledge, we'll enjoy knowledge, we'll ponder,
we'll go deeper into what we know.
Yeah. And Aristotle says that God's life is the life of contemplation.
Yeah.
Where God's just like enjoying all the knowledge that he has, and we'll be able to do that.
I think David Bentley Hart said this, where he was talking about he said, like, if you meet a woman and you really like her, and then you go on a couple of dates, and you know a bunch of facts about her, you can talk about her, all these things. You're married to her for 40 years, and you can't even begin to talk about her. You know her so deeply that it's almost beyond, how could you even sum it up, 40 years of life with them? And I think that's one of those things where it's not, the knowledge of God will not be this collection of facts that we just keep learning necessarily. Maybe it will be, but I think part of it will be that experiential element of, the more you know him, the more inexpressible that knowledge becomes. There's a depth of knowledge that surpasses words, and might be something there.
I can spit off lots of facts about lots of women. That means I'm not married.
Yes. I don't know what to do with that statement, so let's just move on. So,
I mean,
Paul, we're back. We're so back.
Aquinas actually disagrees that we're going to eat in the new creation. So
he thinks we're not.
He thinks we're not. So he thinks.
Oh, you're saying that
some of the fathers think like if there's a role for eating, it's going to be a role of delight.
It's just funny because Aquinas was a fat guy, right? I mean, he was kind of he was called the ox.
He was a portly fellow.
What
he was called the dumb ox.
Yeah,
he was a rather large guy.
I wonder if that maybe had a personal vendetta, just like I'm getting all in now because we don't get to eat in the new creation.
That's so messed up.
I
mean, it's possible.
Yeah. Okay. So subtlety,
agility, clarity, and impassibility.
Okay, impassibility. Let's talk about that.
That's the body will never suffer or die. It will be free from decay and corruption. Which I feel like that's the easiest one to.
Why is it called impassibility though? That sounds so.
Well, because he thinks this is interesting. He thinks in the new creation, we will no longer. This ties in actually with his views on eating and sex. The body will no longer have appetites. Because
what appetite like?
An appetite literally means like the desire for sex, the desire for water, the desire for food. The part of us that craves, he thinks those are by nature defects because they require outside sources to be satisfied. We will be fully satisfied in heaven. So we don't have any desires for anything else. We'll be perfectly just content being in God's presence. If we do eat, which he thinks it's probably not likely, it's not going to be for nutrition purposes. It's for nutrition purposes. It'll be for just the purpose of enjoyment. So any craving, any desire for something that needs to be satisfied in us, that is by nature deficiency. Our glorified bodies will not have deficiency. Therefore, our bodies will not have appetites, cravings. And he thinks that is part of what it is to be like God. God doesn't have appetites. God doesn't have cravings. The technical term is passions. God doesn't have like things acting upon him.
Right.
God doesn't need things to act upon him to be satisfied. So
when we think of
passions,
we think about feelings.
Yeah.
But he's
Impulses,
more talking about
cravings.
Things that act upon you.
That's right.
Because when we think about impassibility, that's an interesting one. I mean, we can understand, okay, we're never going to die. Mm-hmm. We clearly know that death is bad.
Right.
We know there's not going to be any evil or sin. So we know those things. But then when you start to see the other things that whatever doesn't make it to the new creation, to resurrection, is not that it's bad, but
imperfect.
It's imperfect.
Yeah.
So what doesn't make it means there's an imperfection there. Yeah. So some of the things that don't make it are, like
sex and food.
Sex and food, which is interesting.
It is interesting.
Which means that those aren't ultimate things. Not that they're bad.
Yeah.
Now,
we don't have to buy this though. I mean, this is just
true.
Aquinas' view. We're just sort of like riffing on Aquinas.
Well, for sex, that Aquinas talks about you're not going to generate egg or sperm.
That's right.
He also talks about you're not going to have pus, like any of these kind of like your body's responses to disease, because there's not going to be any disease, so you're not going to need that anymore. You will still have blood because blood is what keeps your body going. But
you won't need to eat, and he thinks, so the purpose of sex is to sustain the human species because of death.
Right.
Which I think is interesting because God gives the command to procreate before the fall. He tells Adam and Eve, be fruitful and multiply.
Uh-oh.
So this is where I think Aquinas might actually be, even if he's right, his argument for it might be wrong. Because he gives an argument, he says, well, why is there not going to be procreation in heaven? He says, well, because generation exists to replenish the human species because of death. And so you don't have death in the new creation, so there's no need for generation of a new life. So therefore, there's no procreation. But procreation is not a result of the fall. That's part of God's good design from the beginning.
Well, maybe you could say that if there was no fall, there would still be procreation because the command is given before the fall.
God just takes away the command?
But also the Edenic world is not the final state. Adam and Eve were not fully perfected to what they would be. They didn't sin, but there was I think eventually they would have eaten from the tree of life. Or maybe they were, I don't know. That's all speculation. But the whole point is, I think it's pretty much well established in the tradition, and that we're not being returned to the state of Adam. We're being taken to a greater state, right?
That's true.
And so it might be that procreation is not a remedy for sin necessarily. It is a temporary good, an imperfect good until we reach our final destiny. But that was impeded by the fall. So now, in addition to it generating the species, we needed to also extend life through time or replenish. I don't know.
No, I think Aquinas also thinks that our immortality, even in Eden, was something supernatural granted by God. It's not part of human nature.
Interesting.
So human nature is by its nature
that might be true
to
because
die. And
Adam
it's the tree
is
of
not,
life that gives the grace to...
We were like Adam.
That's right.
So Adam would not have been a resurrected body.
Right.
Because he didn't die and rise again. That wouldn't be a resurrected body.
So it does kind of work.
Yeah.
All that
See, now all the way back to Genesis.
No sex in heaven, no marriage. But is it still possible, and this is one view that's out there, that even if there's no sexual relationships, there's still the good of the marital friendship?
I hope so.
That can exist. I was reading one Catholic theologian who was like, this is the one part of scripture that actually grates against me. He was talking about being married for 50 years. And this is actually kind of beautiful. He said, I can't stand the thought of not recognizing my wife or being friends with her for all eternity. And you think like, wow, you've been with someone for 50 years. Like, don't you get tired of it? No, he's like, I only love her more after all these years. We've got kids together, the shared life. If all of that just goes away in the new creation, that's tragic. That's the loss of a great good. And if the new creation is this great good, then surely that will endure. And I think that's a pretty good argument.
What if you have multiple wives?
This sounds like a Pharisaic question.
No, I'm saying like, you're a widow, you remarry.
That's going to be awkward.
Yeah, you're going to be. Well, I guess that's a question of the Sadducees.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, right.
They ask them,
they show up.
Whose husband will she be in the new? I don't know. I think in some way, all of those relationships will be kind of redeemed. You could all just like go have a beer together.
Well, can you imagine though? You're like, you die first, your wife remarries, they both die, you're all in heaven, and you're like, oh, hey, who's this guy? You're like, what the, wait a minute. So I'm sure it'll all
work out.
But
the awkwardness is going to go away.
It does show though the temporary nature of marriage. And that is a sobering thought. But we had a friend who was like, I think we won't be married in heaven, but like, I think we'll wink at each other, And I like to think that too, It's like, that'll be, I hope there's still, that's why I think the question of your identity persisting is important, because part of what makes life joyful is the people you know. And if you don't know them in the new creation, like one of the great goods of existence is taken from you.
I'll wink at you in heaven, Brian.
Yeah. We'll be podcasting in heaven.
That's right. No, I think that there has to be friendship with God, friendship with other humans, and that requires recognition. And I don't think we're gonna like love each other with this like undifferentiated generic love. I think it's gonna be particular. I think there's gonna be friendships, maybe opportunities for new friendships, but this idea that we'll all be friends in the exact same way, something about that feels not really human and totally just one size fits all.
And I think about even the reconciliation of broken friendships or pains that we washed away. I think what part of it will be is in our perfected knowledge, we will perfectly understand the context of everything. There will be a perfect clarity on the situation to which there will be reconciliation. Like I think everyone will be able to acknowledge the wrongs they had done and that there would be that. Because I think part of what makes relationships strain for so long is people disagree on the facts.
Right.
People have distorted versions of the facts, interpretations, they're biased, all these types of things. And if you could remove those obstructions, then the relationship could actually reconnect. And maybe that's part of the eternal hope.
Well, and this is why the virtues, and we did an episode about this with Marshall a couple of years ago, why the virtues are necessary for new creation, because there's going to be people in heaven that we don't want to be friends with here on earth now. And it would be difficult to accept that they are also beneficiaries of grace in the same way we are. And maybe they're also fellow brethren here in this life, but we just can't we can't cross that chasm now. But like you said, missed facts or just distorted lenses through which we see the experience, or trauma. Maybe it's just pathological. You can't even see the person in the right kind of light.
Interesting.
And part of that's physiological, that the traumas will go away, but also the virtues that are necessary to reconcile and have those friendships. I'm thinking about the Great Divorce also, where I forget if it's a man or a woman who sees a horrible, I think it was a murderer or just like someone who did all these awful crimes, sees them in heaven and just can't get over it.
Yeah.
Can't say like, how could this person be here?
Yeah.
They don't have the virtue of recognizing that they're a recipient of grace and that but for the grace of God go I. Like we're all in the same playing field. We're all on equal footing. And without that, heaven would be a hellish place for you. So you need those virtues to even enjoy the kind of like rigors of the new creation, because it's going to force so much on you to take in. So many relationships you don't want to acknowledge, so many people you don't want to acknowledge their humanity, so many people that you don't want to be reconciled to. The new creation is going to be like the awkward, like forcing you back, like getting all that out in the air and in the open, and it's going to be healthy and restorative and redemptive.
That's a really provocative point about trauma, especially if you have physical redemption. If your nervous system, your body will actually experience such a healing and redemption that'll be how the trauma is redeemed.
Yeah,
kind of an interesting way to look at it. Aquinas also talks about when we are resurrected. He talks about how if you resurrected as a 10-year-old, that wouldn't be perfection because you're still coming into your potential. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't be an 80-year-old because that's a decay from your potential. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Yeah. Right? So you'll probably be at your peak. So maybe that's right now. You know, we're peak right now.
Yeah, you're in your youth.
He also says
exactly one, but yeah,
you'll be resurrected to your full like genetic potential, essentially. You know, like like that if there were no impediments from malnourishment or whatever, that you would be congenital defects, you would be everything you were to be. So you wouldn't be paralyzed.
That's right.
Right. You would have the functioning legs that had there not been
you'll
sin
be fully actualized.
Right.
All of your being.
I'm going to be 6'4". It's going to be awesome. How crazy
I think
would
that
that
might
be?
be a deficiency for you.
Oh, really?
It wouldn't be Brian anymore. Is being a 4'11" intrinsic to being Brian?
I have a theory that because we'll be perfected, we'll realize that actually being really short
is virtuous.
We don't see that now. We see in a mirror dimly now, but when we see face to face, we'll see.
There are all these studies that suggest being tall and good looking makes you vicious. And this is why you're so virtuous.
That's right. Because of my defect.
Physical defect, spiritual virtue.
There you go. Okay, so we're talking through this, what it means to be human. What doesn't persist into the new age is
imperfect.
How does that change how we live now?
I think it helps us reprioritize. Not to say things like marriage are bad, like you said, but that this really is a drop in the ocean of eternity. And to live life in that perspective, and to remember that our bodies are not these impediments. The physical ailments, the defects, the corruptions, yes, those are things that will be taken away. But we shouldn't wish that the body no longer exists. All of our yearnings to maybe it's like sickness, maybe it's chronic pain, maybe it's trauma, those are not defects of the body intrinsically. So God's not going to destroy the body in the new creation. He's going to glorify it. That's a really reassuring thought. And that's one that I think the early church really, really struggled with, because you're living under brutality. You're living in just conditions where sickness and infanticide and all of that ravages the body. It's so easy to say, one day God's going to free me from this body. And indeed, Paul says God's going to free me from this thing, but he's not talking about the physical body. He's talking about the flesh and making a distinction between the flesh and the body, seeing the body as good. The flesh is the old man, the thing that's trying to weigh me down.
Right.
The effects of sin. Those are the things that are going to be corrected. And then help reframe how we think about things like marriage, friendship, food, the appetites. There's going to be something that continues and something that's different. And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but that's okay.
This is interesting. If there's no sex in heaven, that means that its goal isn't pleasure. Right? Because you would still eat for pleasure.
Oh, that's true.
Potentially.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But,
yeah.
Right?
If we can eat for delight.
I mean, I don't want it. This is gonna sound crap, but like,
no,
if there's no marriage in heaven,
yeah,
but there is sex,
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you kind of got a weird.
That's true. So if we can eat for delight, but not have sex at all, it tells us that sex is for something else other than delighting in one
it's
another.
tied to marriage.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Right. And then you have to go, well, what is marriage for? So, there's an interesting.
There will be big parties and feasting in heaven. There won't be orgies in heaven.
I didn't want to say it like that, but since you said it like
I'll
that,
say it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
but
I
mean,
that's true. That's a really good point.
Oh gosh, well,
wow, we went there.
We went there.
Aquinas is going to say neither of them exist in heaven, but I mean, I disagree. I think there will be food in heaven, feasting in heaven, the language of the banquets. Isaiah talks about the table spread. All that's there.
Well, we won't be gluttonous in heaven.
We won't be. That's right.
Yeah.
But never a mention of sex in heaven. And in fact, Jesus seems to suggest pretty forthrightly, we will be as the angels, whatever that means. Yeah. Dude, that's a really good argument. I hadn't thought of that.
There we go.
Every third leap year, you have a brilliant insight.
We should probably stop while we're ahead.
That's right.
Then. But a great discussion. We're going to keep cranking out these episodes on weird theology. And we got some fun ones on the way. So thank you guys for listening. And make sure you subscribe. And leave us a good review. That'll really help the podcast grow. Appreciate you guys.